Welcome to the Johnny Hates Jazz Q&A. Thank you very much to everyone who sent in their questions. We've looked through all of them and we won't have time to answer every single one in this session, but thank you to everyone. Okay, so the first question is from Annie Elizabeth. Hello, Annie. How are you doing? This is a really good question. I've listened to lots of your recent interviews, I think referring to me, lots. And you have said about writing your songs on the piano. How do all the other instruments find their place on a recording? Do you play them all or write a musical score for them? It's a really good question. So yes, I do write songs generally on a piano. I always have. And the main reason for that is probably because I grew up with a connection with the piano and my voice. And that was also part of how the great singer-songwriters that we grew up listening to, you know, Carole King or Billy Joel or, you know, Lennon and McCartney, that's how they wrote. And there's something very, very real about it. If you can make a song sound good in a song form, just with the voice and piano, you're halfway there. The other half of it, though, is turning it into a record of equal quality. So, Mike, how do we get all the other instruments as part of the recording?
It's a strange one. Obviously, if it's like a traditional record, you know, be bass and drums and guitars and keyboards. If, for example, there's a guitar part that we want, we don't feel that we can play it, we'll get somebody in. But what we won't do is tell them what we want. We might have a very clear idea of how we think it should be, but you're hiring somebody, usually somebody great, so you want to hear what they bring to it. And very often they'll play something and you'll think, oh, that's better than what I had in mind. So, and then sometimes you do listen to everything and then you go, could you try this?
Yeah.
And that happens quite often too.
And in some ways, that's no different to how you and I would put down instrument tracks as well, because you go into it trying things out. You have a go, and it's very hit and miss in that way. Like you said, unless there is a very specific part. I mean, I think that we're very fortunate that we work with some fantastic musicians, and it's really hard to name any one of them. But on the new single, New Day Ahead, our guitarist Marcus Bonfanti, who I know, Annie, you know, have a particular love for his playing. He is just absolutely fantastic on that track. He always is, though. Marcus is our live guitarist, and he's just great, amongst other people.
The difficult part sometimes is knowing when it isn't quite right. You might start a track, and you might go quite far down the line with it, but you need to be able to step back and go, is this as good as the song? And sometimes you have to just scrap a week's work, 2 weeks' work, and start again because it hasn't matched the quality of the song.
We'll move on to Paz Lorena. Paz, hello. How are you in Chile? Hope you're well. You travel a lot, so I'm not sure where you are right now. But okay, I guess this is the first time in your career that you were able to be in touch and meet your fans from all over the world before you make an album. That's a really interesting point. Did that extra ingredient have some impact in the process of making Wide Awake? Did you feel some kind of pressure in order to satisfy that big audience who grew up listening to your music? Usually were the record labels and their people the force behind the pressure on the artists? Did that happen in our case? Well, that's again really good question, because it touches on many things. I mean, I would say, let's just go to the last question first. Record companies and their pressure on artists. I think in our case, that just didn't happen, because when we were signed to Virgin Records in the 80s, most of them, 98% of the people who worked in Virgin Records didn't think we had a chance. There were two people who did. Two people, John Wooler, Caroline True. And if either of you are watching, or both of you, we love you both very much for the faith you showed in us. So no one was breathing down our necks when we were recording our material. And in all honesty, our A&R man, John Wooler, understood that because we were very self-sufficient, you know, I was writing, Mike and Calvin producing, We did a lot of the instrumentation ourselves. We were very self-contained, no external producers, anything like that. He knew that we were best left to our own devices. It was best if they just let us get on with it, and that was the right ingredient. Coming forward to this day, well, we're very self-reliant. You know, it's really down to us. And both Mike and I, because we like to set the bar high, we try and aim high in terms of quality. That's what creates the pressure, I think. We pressure each other and ourselves to hit as high a mark as possible. I think we've really done that on Wide Awake. I hope so. Mike, do you want to add into that?
Just other than the fact that, you never make a record for somebody else. You make a record that you like, that you feel satisfied with. And of course, you then hope others do. But if you start sitting there going, I wonder what everybody thinks we should put in the intro, or whether we should bring strings in here, it's just the end, because you'll just be chasing yourself constantly.
Okay. So Paz, I hope that answered your question. Deborah Kassar. Deborah, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Question from Mike. Mike, what was it like working with your own heroes, Pink Floyd?
I think everybody in kind of any walk of life, especially the music industry or the film industry, when you're working, you feel very differently than if you were a spectator. If you were sitting in a room with your hero, and observing and watching, you might feel a bit in awe and everything, but you're actually working. So it disappears, because you have a job to do. You can't think that it's Roger Waters sitting next to you, or Dave Gilmore is over there. You can't think that, because you're doing your work. So it's kind of as simple as that. And I think a lot of people in films will think that. Like an extra will be sitting next to Tom Cruise or something. But they can't be sitting there staring at Tom Cruise, because they have their part to play. So it's sort of like that too. But it's a great thrill afterwards.
Mike, actually, let me add into that question of Deborah's. I know, taking on board what you've just said, is Dave Gilmore the greatest guitarist of all time?
Absolutely amazing. It was inspiring to stand. I had to go out into the studio while he's playing, and it was just a wall of speakers. And the great guitar players make a different noise than the rest of us. When I play guitar, or even very good guitar players, they make a certain sound, but the greats, they strike the strings differently, and he's one of the greats. So.
Cool. Ruslan Vasilyev, you're probably laughing now with my pronunciation, but sorry. Look, with a name like Clark Thatcher, believe me, I've had many mispronunciations. Hi, Clark and Mike, I'm from Russia, and I want to know if you plan to come with a concert to us in Moscow. I am convinced that there are many of your fans in Russia, including myself, who want to hear you live. Thank you for such wonderful music. That's a lovely message, Ruslan. Thank you very much, man. Thank you. Well, the answer is we need promoters in Russia to invite us, and we'll be there like a shot, you know, post-pandemic. Yeah, we'd love to come to Russia, very much so. I know there's some, you know, there's a bit of a synthwave resurgence in Russia as well. So I think that the interest in us is also from a younger generation who are discovering what is called synthwave music. As you know, we just called it music, but in today's multi-genre society, synthwave is apparently partly what we are. So yeah, we'd love to come. Michael Alders, or Mikhail Alders, did I get that right? Maybe I've done another mispronunciation. Looking forward to the new album. Great. Hope it is just as good as Magnetized. Cool, I think so, yeah. You guys know how to treat your fans. What a fresh breath of air. That's kind of you to say so, thank you. My question is, why haven't I heard Spirit of Love on Dutch radio? Such a good song. And do you think to score a massive hit ever again? Greetings from Holland. Dank je wel. Well, Mike, why haven't we been heard on Dutch radio?
Well, start with we've only released the record in the UK so far. I mean, it is digitally available everywhere, but so we only went to the UK radio. if please feel, if you feel inclined, please write to your local radio stations in Holland or anywhere else and say, hey, how come you're not playing this record? Because it's great. Because the other thing that's great these days, word of mouth is still the strongest marketing tool there is. If you tell somebody and they tell someone else and so on and so on, that's the way things get spread. So, like I say, write to your radio stations, call them up, email them, tweet them.
Bear in mind that DJs don't get to play everything they want to play like they used to in the past. They're given playlists by the companies that own their radio stations now, which limits their ability to do what they want to do. So, I mean, I know some of the DJs in Holland, and I know they need your support. If you want to hear Johnny Hates Jazz, do write to them. They're a really lovely bunch of people as well. Okay. Mike Waring. Hello, Mike. Clark, do you find you have to be in a particular space for songs to come to you? And what is that process like for you? In my experience, in Mike's experience, Mike Waring, all the best songs come when there's that channel open. I know exactly what you mean. Yes, you do have to be in a certain space. And one of the ways I get into a space is I go on long walks in the countryside, because I feel that the only influence I have then is nature and what's in my own head, and it gets rid of a lot of the clutter in my own mind, and I can really start to listen to those ideas floating around. Carolina Venada, I hope I got that right. Hi guys, is there any artist with whom you would like to make a duet? Hope to see you live in Portugal someday. Wonderful, love to be there. We had actually had a little chat before we started recording about this question, Carolina. That's how important it is. And I said to Mike that the first person that came to mind was actually Don Henley. And the reason I say that is that I think he's a fantastic writer, fantastic singer. I know Mike very much agrees with that. Both Eagles fans. But I love the fact that Don Henley has a real care for the earth. He's very environmentally aware. He did a beautiful song called Goodbye to a River many years ago, a tragic song about what we're doing to the planet. So I'd love for us to do a track with Don Henley. That's my answer. Okay, Edmund Seah, S-E-A-H. I hope I got that right. Edmund. Hi there, Shay. Will there be a vinyl version of Wide Awake to be released? Mike, will there?
Well, I hope so. Yes, yes, there will. There will be.
It's in the pipeline.
But everybody knows it's a different process. When you make a record, you then master the record. It goes to a facility that does what it does to make it appropriate for radio and going onto a CD. But to put it onto vinyl is a different process again, because from a sonic point of view, all the information that you can put on a CD, you can't put on a vinyl. You can't. There's too much bass. There's too much top end. There's big explosions, and the vinyl won't handle it. So when we are able to, we will remaster it for vinyl. There you go.
Mike, it reminds me about the difficulty of getting Shattered Dreams onto vinyl.
Oh, that was we have Tony Cousins to thank, he was at the Townhouse at the time, and I think he's Metropolis now. And he actually mastered the Magnetized album, but he was when we first took the track in, he started it and started listening. And someone had told me when I first started in the industry that if you take it into the mastering room and the mastering engineer, after 10, 20, 30 seconds, turns around to you and goes, "Oh, I like this," you should just walk out. And the reason being is because they're supposed to be listening to everything but the song. They're listening to all the sounds because they need to get onto the plastic. So Tony listened to it several times, and after the third listen, he was like, "This, I love this." And so from then on, he was desperate to get all the settings he had. He had quite a lot of top ends on it. And at the beginning, after, I don't know, 5, 6 seconds, there's a triangle. So it's really high pitched. And we kept trying to put it onto the plastic, and it kept exploding the plastic. And I think it was on the 8th attempt, he got onto the record. So he was so keen to not just back off the top end. So well done to Tony.
Yeah, good fella. So there you go. That was the journey of Shattered Dreams, the final leg of the journey, actually. Okay, next question is from Derek Wicks. Fantastic. What is it like making a music video? And the photo shoots, what are they like? Mike, I'm going to hand over to you again. Let's talk about the videos, for example, with David Fincher.
But it was a 24-hour job. We arrived at 10 in the morning and we left at 10 the next morning. It's 3 minutes. So you're there for 24 hours. So there's a lot of sitting around. It's a lot of fun. It's very hard work. But it's obviously it's very satisfying when you watch it at the end and you like the video. Not so good when you don't like the video.
And that has happened occasionally. not really naming any videos, but David Fincher, of course, did the black and white Shattered Dreams. This was the Shattered Dreams for the US, and did Heart of Gold. Because, of course, back then, the record labels would spend an enormous amount on videos. They were mini feature films in some regards. I mean, you know, there were sets, there were whole crews, massive amounts of lighting. It was very, very involved. And now we're in a different era where, for example, with the new video, New Day Ahead, we decided to do everything in front of a green screen. And if you see the video, I think you'll kind of understand where we're coming from, because a lot of the video are these hyper effects that are used behind us, and I think it's a really good video, don't you? So, okay, next question. This is from Bentadonna. At least that's your Facebook username, Bentadonna. Do you find songwriter easier or more difficult now compared to in the 1980s? I mean, is experience, personal baggage, and gained wisdom a blessing or a curse in terms of songwriting?
That's a great question.
It's an excellent question. There's a song on Magnetize called The Road Not Taken. And The Road Not Taken is me as an older guy reflecting on the things that I felt I didn't get right when I was younger, mistakes that I felt I made, and really forgiving myself, forgiving the younger Clark for his ignorance and making the mistakes that he did. So in that sense, what you can do, and I think this is the power of writing as a more mature person, is that you can use that sense of reflection on the past to great effect, because that is what we do when we get older. We mull over the journey to this point. So I think that can be a blessing. Nicole Fratrich -author. Nicole, I really hope I pronounced that right. Remember what I said about the pronunciation of my own name earlier? I do empathize. Your question is, as singers, songwriters, artists, how do you wish to be remembered, especially by fans of a younger generation, like me, who wasn't around in the 80s? Oh, I see, okay. What impact has Johnny Hates Jazz always strived to make on the music community? That is a very interesting question. I didn't realize that you were not from our generation. So, well, Mike, do you want to start with that?
Other than what kind of goes back to the question from before, we make records, and Clark writes songs for himself, to please himself, to satisfy himself. So the quality, like Clark said, we both have a very, very high bar. So in a sense, personally speaking, I'm not thinking about what anybody's going to think, or if, at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to write the best song you can and make the best record you can. Because Clark and I have had this conversation many times. I'm a huge believer in the record. For me, the most important thing about Johnny Hates Jazz is not that we're remembered, it's that our songs still touch people in many, many years to come. Because, I mean, songs like, for example, Spirit of Love and New Day Ahead from the new album, they're both very topical songs. You know, New Day Ahead's about climate change. Spirit of Love is about the need for togetherness and unity to overcome global problems. I mean, unfortunately, I think these challenges are going to be with us far into the future. So I hope those songs stay relevant
in the same way that, for example, I Don't Want to Be a Hero, you know, our anti-war song from the late 80s, still seems highly relevant today. We get a lot of people asking us about that particular track because of its subject matter. War, unfortunately, is still part of our present reality. So I hope that answers your question. Good question, though. Jason Ashby. Sorry, Jason. Here's your question. I've wondered, JHJ has always seemed quite fashion savvy. This is a particularly nice black t-shirt I've got on. Just wondered if it was a conscious decision by you or your management to utilize the dapper look in your publicity, especially in your debut album. The look was based on the fact that that's what I looked like. I dressed like that for quite some years before. And how was I able to do that, and why did I do that? Well, I think this goes back to Bowie. I think David Bowie was the greatest proponent of the merging of music and fashion. But I mean, you could say that was true of the Beatles, actually, you know, their whole look that was kind of imposed of them, that fashion and music went hand in hand. Again, something that's changed a lot now, because fashion, of course, is now dominated by huge multinational labels. That wasn't the case when we were younger. So I was able to look like that because my brother Ash worked in one of the best clothing stores, fashion stores on the King's Road in London. And so they would often, you know, I would get clothes at a discount, but sometimes they would lend me clothes, you know, for a photo shoot or whatever. And they ended up doing that for the whole band when Johnny Hates Jazz came into being. So it was kind of a natural thing to do. You were in a band, you just wanted to look good. You know, that was a really important thing. You didn't want to look like you just got out of bed. So that was the thing. It's also a kind of a quality thing, you know, that goes back to wanting to make music, write songs of a certain quality. And I think we wanted the look to be of a certain quality as well. But like I say, I think David Bowie was a big part in all of that. He really nailed it. Okay, Mike, this is for you because you remember this very clearly. This is from Just Keeping Up with Interests. That's an interesting name, Just Keeping Up with Interests. At the end of Turn Back the Clock, the video this is, you greet a man walking down the sidewalk, which is the pavement to we Brits. Who was he? Mike, who was he?
We shot the video in upstate New York. So it was about an hour's drive out of the city. And so I think it was 2 or 3 day shoot. And then the final day, the final night, we came back and we stayed in a hotel in Manhattan. So I think on Fifth Avenue. And so the director said, oh, let's just get one final shot. You know, you guys can be just over there, we'll come and you can walk towards us and I'll just get a shot. It was a great shot. And so the producer of the video, a guy called Frank Hilton, I'm pretty sure it was Frank Hilton, he just decided that he wanted me in the video, I guess. And so he was the guy walking up towards us. So I think he greets you, Clark, doesn't he?
That particular video was such a fun video to make. It was a really, I mean, Mike, you have a very strong connection with upstate New York as well.
My younger brother David came to visit because he lived another hour upstate. And so he came to visit. So he was there for a few days. So it was kind of fun. Yeah.
It was a great video to make that. So thank you for your question. Just keeping up with interests. Okay, Sean. Oh, I'm not going to get this right. Sean Mukherjee, 69. Sean, again, sorry about the pronunciation.
Right.
Which singer group inspired you the most in your careers? Was it Elvis or the Beatles? Mike, Elvis or the Beatles?
Well, obviously, because Elvis was the era before. He was too early. He was amazing. I remember seeing a video. I think it was the year of 1956, and I think it was Hound Dog. And I just remember seeing a clip, and it was take 32 or something like that. That they decided that was the master. But they had done take 34, 35. But Elvis was like, no, that's the one. He went back 3 takes. But just the fact that it took them 30 takes to do it was fantastic. The Beatles for our generation were everything. They started it. they still hang over the music business. Every artist that there's ever been since then has a Beatles influence in them somewhere.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well answered. Okay, so we come to the final question. Yes, folks, I'm afraid it's the final question for now. But you'll be hearing more from us musically over the coming decades, I'm sure, if not centuries. This is from Colin Gento. Did I get that right, Colin, or is it Colin Cento? When are you doing a US tour? Well, when someone in the US asks us to. That's our question. You know, it's very important that we all understand how records are made and tours are made, and we don't choose not to tour in a place. You have to be invited by promoters of those countries, of those lands, in order to tour there. You can ask them, you can make a proposition, but they have to invite you. So it goes back to what Mike was saying in answer to the question about why Spirit of Love as a song is not on radio in Holland. And Mike said, well, write into your radio stations and request it. I would say demand from promoters in the US, your local promoters maybe in your area, that they bring Johnny Hates Jazz over. And that's the way to make that happen. So it's all in your hands, Colin.
Well said, Clark. That's exactly right.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Well, okay, there we are. Fantastic questions. And again, sorry if we didn't cover all of them. We are really maxed out on time. We've actually gone a bit over, so I hope you're going to be able to get to see all this. All right, take care, everyone. Bye for now.